Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. It's been no secret that there's not been a program hotter on the recruiting trail than Hugh Freeze, this Auburn Tigers program, and it doesn't sound like they're slowing down anytime soon. You take a look at quarterback Deuce Knight, the buzz around Deuce Knight potentially coming to Auburn. It's about as loud as it's been all offseason. And many of you guys know I'm not big into talking the rumorville on the recruiting trail until those rumors get awfully loud. And it seems like the buzz and the rumors around Deuce Knight and the traction heading to Auburn, it's getting really loud to the point that I want to talk about it. I want to talk about a couple of different things. One, why is Auburn going after Deuce Knight? Why have they identified him as the quarterback that seemingly they want to push their chips into the middle of the table for? But I think more importantly, what does this quarterback runway look like for this Auburn program over the next couple of years? Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the Auburn Tiger fans. It's been a blast talking this program over the last couple of weeks on the recruiting trail. The amount of support y'all show to the fellas, it truly does mean a lot. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, we're going to get into that quarterback runway conversation, kind of projecting what this quarterback room might look like in 2025 and in 2026. Would love to hear some of your input in the comments section. And without further ado, let's get into Deuce Knight now. Before we get into the player Deuce Knight, a fascinating prospect in this 2025 cycle, I want to start why this is such a big storyline for this Auburn program. Where you look at the 2025 cycle, this Auburn program is checking just about every single box at every single position group in that 2025 class besides the quarterback position. And you've seen Auburn kind of quietly go after some guys like Julian Lewis and KJ Lacey, but it does seem like they've identified Deuce Knight as the guy they want to add in this 2025 cycle. And what you're selling Deuce Knight is you're coming into an Auburn program that is going to have one of the most talented offenses that you see in the country around the quarterback position, right? You go back to what they brought in 2024, Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Bryce Kane, the amount of talent that's going to be on this Auburn team. Well, Deuce Knight potentially is the quarterback at Auburn. It's going to be at an all-time high. And I think that is a massive selling point for a guy like Deuce Knight, who won, if I'm a quarterback, I want to go play offense for Coach Hugh Freeze, Ken Austin. But I think more importantly, you kind of know you're going to be running an offense that has a ton of weapons for you to really light it up. Now you get into Deuce Knight, talk about what kind of quarterback Deuce Knight is. Arguably the most physically gifted quarterback in this 2025 cycle. Now, is he the best polished quarterback right now going into his senior year? Absolutely not. But you take a look at what he can do, the highs of Deuce Knight's game, it doesn't get any higher. Let's talk about the athlete first. At 6'4.5", 205 pounds, this is a kid that runs a 4.5 in the 40-yard dash, clocked in a 42-inch vertical, which you go to the NFL Combine this year, regardless of position, would have been a top 10 metric in the NFL Combine. You're talking about not just a quarterback that can make it happen with his legs. You're talking about a truly dual threat quarterback that is a weapon with his legs, extending plays, running the football. And that just gives Hugh Freeze, this Auburn offense, just more opportunities to attack defenses in a different way. So one, a plus athlete, and then you look at the arm talent and say, has it been inconsistent during his high school career? Absolutely. You go back to the junior year, he's kind of had an inconsistent high school career where he transferred to Lipscomb Academy up in Nashville, played 3 games there, transferred back down to George County in Mississippi. He went 5-5, completed only 53% of his passes. I'm not buying too much into the lack of consistency when you're starting your high school junior season at one school, then transferring and playing the next week and it's at high school in Mississippi. It kind of makes sense why Deuce Knight hasn't had the most consistency on Friday nights. But when you do turn on the film, when you do take a look at some of the 7-on-7 results, you look at a quarterback in Deuce Knight who's a lefty and absolutely – he puts on a laser show, for lack of better terms. I mean, the amount of high-level throws that he puts on the film, it's truly astonishing. And I think what you're looking at with Hugh Freeze is you're kind of understanding this is a kid that's not necessarily a finished product at the quarterback spot, but he checks about every single box and has some elite characteristics about him that kind of gives him that high upside at the college football level. And if you're Hugh Freeze, Ken Austin, you believe in your ability to develop quarterbacks, there's not many quarterbacks that you want to work with in terms of developmental prospects more than a guy like Deuce Knight. I think that makes this Auburn quarterback room so fascinating because you go back to the 2024 class with Walker White. I mean, you look at Walker White and Deuce Knight, two of the most talented quarterbacks we've seen come out of high school over the last couple of classes, in the probability of at least one of those quarterbacks reaching their potential, it's probably pretty high. And if you get one of those quarterbacks to reach their potential, you are looking at one of the better quarterbacks really in all of the SEC in the country from a physical talent standpoint. So if you're Auburn, I think you're really excited about what this quarterback room might look like over the next couple of years. And that kind of opens up the question of, all right, what's this Auburn quarterback room going to look like in 2025? I think there's a couple of different scenarios, and let's kind of just play around with the fact that Deuce Knight joins this Auburn class and will be with this Auburn program as a true freshman. Probably not a quarterback that plays as a true freshman, so we're not going to talk about Deuce Knight starting in 2025, but there's a lot of different ways that Auburn could go about building this quarterback room in 2025. I think the first is, what do we get from Hank Brown or Walker White? Potentially Holden Garner too, but I think a lot of Auburn fans are probably looking more at Walker White and Hank Brown, which I certainly don't blame you guys. Those are two talented quarterbacks, especially Walker White. I think it starts with those two. You kind of see what the development looks like year one with Walker White, year two with Hank Brown. But I also think this Auburn program in 2025 will be a very desirable program for a transfer quarterback to come in. And I think Auburn would want to make that move as well. You look at Hugh Freeze and why he was kind of reluctant to go grab a quarterback in the transfer portal this offseason. You know, I think Hugh Freeze knew that this team, if they went out and got Cam Ward, yeah, they probably win maybe a little bit more football games than they would with Peyton Thorne. That being said, were they going to go win an SEC championship? Was Cam Ward going to be the quarterback that pushes them over the top? The answer was probably not. Now, I think what's fascinating about the conversation in 2025 is that a quarterback like Cam Ward, and what I expect this Auburn team to look like in 2025, you get a quarterback like Cam Ward in the transfer portal, it probably does push you over the top, and it makes you a legitimate SEC title contender in the 2025 season. So the first option is Auburn might just go get a transfer quarterback for the 2025 season. Let Hank Brown and Walker White continue to develop along with Deuce Knight. There's also that conversation that, you know, Walker White puts it together or Hank Brown puts it together and are quarterbacks that emerge as quarterbacks you can win with in the SEC in 2025. But at the end of the day, we had some question marks about what this Auburn quarterback room was going to look like in the future if they weren't going to grab a quarterback in 2025. If you make it happen with Deuce Knight, you are adding a legitimate high upside quarterback that could be one of the better quarterbacks in the country. You start feeling a lot better about what the Auburn quarterback room is going to look like over the next couple of years. You have a guy like Walker White and Deuce Knight. I mean, if one of those guys put it together, you are looking at a really fun quarterback room with a big-time high upside ceiling. We'll see how it plays out when Deuce Knight, if and when Deuce Knight does flip his commitment to Auburn. We'll dive into the film, talk a little bit more about what Deuce Knight brings to the table. But at the end of the day, it is a next-level athlete at the quarterback position with some big-time arm talent. That, yes, does he play a little too much backyard football? Does he need to play a little bit more within the offense at times? Absolutely. But we're going to bet on those traits every single day of the week. We'll see what happens with Deuce Knight. Really excited to see how it unfolds. We'll cut it there again. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.